Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanana Bhajan Haranjana Yamna Tira Mishpad Paramahamsa Pravajakataristo Saraswata Sri Srimad Bhagavatam Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaudi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Maharaj Ki Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to Shishi Guru and Go Ram. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 6, chapter entitled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. Tavad Payam Dravina Deha Surin Nimitam.
Tavad Payam
Shoka Spriha Paribhavo Vipulascha Lobha.
Shoka Spriha Paribhavo Vipulascha Lobha.
Tavam Mameti Asadava Graha Arti Mulam.
Tavan Mameti Asadava Grahati Mulam.
Yavannate Nigrihim Abhayam Punita Loka.
Yavanete Nivimabhyayam Pramanita Loka.
Javadvayam Ravina Deha Surinimitam.
Javadvayam Ravina Surinimitam.
Shoka Spriha Paribhavo Vipulascha Lobha.
Shoka Spriha Paribhavo Vipulascha Lobha.
Dhavan Mameti Asadava Graharti Mulam.
Tavan Mameti Asadava Grahati Mulam.
Yavannate Nigrim Abhayam Parinita Loka.
Yavanate Nigrimabhayam Praviniti Loka.
Tavat. Until then, Bhayam, fear, Dharivina, wealth, Deha, body, Surit, relatives, Nimitam, for the matter of Shoka, lamentation, Spriha, desire, Paribhava, paraphernalia, Vipula, very great, Cha, also, Lobha, avarice, Tavat, up to that time, Mama, mine, Iti, thus, Asat, perishable, Vagraha, undertaking, Arti Mulam, full of anxieties, Yavat, as long as, Na, do not, Te, Yo, Angrihimabayam, safe lotus feet, Pravrinita, take shelter, Loka, people of the world. Translation, O my Lord, people of the world are embarrassed by all material anxieties. They're always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body and friends. They are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia, and they avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable conceptions of my and mine. As long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are full of such anxieties. Purport. One may question how one can always think of the Lord in regard to his name, fame, quality, etc. if one is embarrassed by the thoughts of family affairs. Everyone in the material world is full of thoughts about how to maintain his family, how to protect his wealth, how to keep pace with friends and relatives, etc. Thus he is always in fear and lamentation, trying to keep up with the status quo. In answer to this question, this verse spoken by Lord Brahma is very appropriate. A pure devoted Lord never thinks of himself as the proprietor of his home. He surrenders everything under the supreme control of the Lord, and thus he has no fear for maintaining his family or protecting the interests of his family. Because of this surrender, is no longer any attraction for wealth. Even if there is attraction for wealth, it is not for sense enjoyment, but for service to the Lord. A pure devotee may be attracted to accumulating wealth just like an ordinary man, but difference is that a devotee acquires money for the service of the Lord, whereas the ordinary man acquires money for his sense enjoyment. Thus, the acquisition of wealth by devotees is not a source of anxieties, as it is the case for a worldly man. And because a pure devotee accepts everything in the sense of serving the Lord, the poisonous teeth of accumulation of wealth are extracted. If a snake has its poison removed and bites a man, there is no fatal effect. Similarly, wealth accumulated in the cause of the devotee has no poisonous teeth. In fact, it is not fatal. Pure devotee is never entangled in materially worldly affairs, although he may remain in the world like an ordinary man. Om Agyan, Dimarandasya, Jananjana Salakaya, Chaksuramilitam Yanatasve, Shri Guruve Namaha. Durgam me Padimindasya, Skalapati, Katir, Muhu, Sukripa, Yusvidana, Shantu, Shantu, Avalambanam. So today's sloka is about frustration and anxiety in the material world of those people who have no knowledge of their eternality. So I often use the example of two train tracks just to sort of warm the conversation up. I always like to speak about my youth and or past activities. So when we were students and we were broke, we had the opportunity to have some part-time jobs, and that would be working for the railways. So we'd line up in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning in the number 4 shed, and we'd be waiting to get picked out by the guy, sort of say, you, and you're in. So we'd get the job for the day, and I'm working on the railways. So the railways was a big thing actually, and so Prabhupada also used to talk about the railways, how the British put the railways in India. That was railway tracks. So always there's two railways tracks. Sometimes they're running parallel. Sometimes one train's running on one track and the other train's coming the other way, and you hear this whoosh. I'm totally diverging here. I just remember when I was going to France, the temple in France, New Mayapur, and they have those fast trains. Anyone been on them fast trains? 300 kilometres an hour. You're sort of going down the road, and you see all the cars on the highway just sort of going so slow, and you're just going sailing past them, and all of a sudden, boom! Train comes the other way, and shakes you up like that. So two parallel tracks, railway tracks. So in Vedic, we can use that example that one track is apavarga and the other track is pavarga. Pavarga and apavarga. So pavarga means work, hard work, frustration, and apavarga, just the A before pavarga means liberation. Actually, where I come from, the origin of my existence was from a European country called Lithuania, and we used to use that word pavarga all the time. My father would come home and say, "Oh, pavargas. I'm so tired. I've been working so hard." So that was a natural word for me. When I saw it in the Bhagavad Gita, I go, "Yes, pavarga, right? Working hard." But we didn't know about apavarga, that's liberation. So we'll go through this. We'll discuss pavarga actually, because Prabhupada gives a really good definition of pavarga, because actually he breaks pavarga up into 5 syllables. There's pa, fa, ba, and ma. Now, I had this realization this morning when I was in this sort of awkward yoga posture, and I got sudden enlightenment. Now, that is legitimate. Buddha got enlightenment under a tree. I got enlightenment in a yoga posture. That I always was confused, but sometimes we say be with thee, So sometimes people say Brindavan or Vrindavan, right? Or Brijabasi. Brijabasi sounds better than Rijabasi, doesn't it? But to me, Vrindavan sounds better than Brindavan. So there is a sort of slight, like interlocking of B and V. So this is what we've got. We've got we've got pa, like in Pavarga, fa, And then we've got ba, which is very important, and BHA, ba, because it's used in the translation here. We have ba here, bayam. Bayam means fear. So that's one of the definitions in Pavarga. And then we have ba, fear, and ma. Pavarga, well, G and M, that's also, or so that means death. So pa, working hard, fa, foaming at the mouth, ba, frustration, ba, fear, ma, death. That is the 5 sort of syllables of Pavarga, and that's what they stand for. And each syllable, there's an explanation for each syllable. It is longer, but just to elaborate a little bit, I'll talk about each one of these syllables. So in Pavarga, first of all, we have PA, pa. That is frustration. So, working hard, sorry. The first one is pa, is working hard. Second one is frustration. So to work hard, we have to work hard in the civilization to survive, because we're in the city and we need a lot of money to live. I remember once Srila Prabhupada went on a morning walk to the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. I was fortunate enough to go on one of them. Did you go on any, Ram? I only went on one because I did what I was told, and they said we have to take it in turns, right? So it was only my turn for one day. But others, they didn't listen, and they went every day. So who's in the right? Was I in the right, or were they in the right to go with Prabhupada? It's a question I can't resolve. I only went once. But one time Prabhupada was coming back, and you saw all the people going to work, getting off at Flinders Station, and you see the whole mass of people working, and he actually became very, very sad. He said, look at these people, they're just sort of wasting their lives. And we can see that this has been a gradual way society has gone ever since they've started big cities. Before that, people basically lived in the country, and they'd work maybe 8 months of the year, and when the rainy season came in India, they'd have 4 months to sort of reflect on their life and concentrate on spirituality. But now in the cities, there's just every day constantly working, and as it gets harder, you have to work harder. There's a foaming at the mouth. So now we see that before, people used to just, the father used to work. My father just used to work from Monday to Friday and have the weekend off, and we all survived quite nicely. But where does that happen now? That usually the husband has to go out to work, the wife has to go to work, you get called up on the weekends, or you have to work the night shift, and you're working very hard. So that is the part that is foaming out the mouth. That is referring to the donkey, where you see in India, the donkeys, oh my God, they're so skinny, and they've got these huge carts of hay and bricks, and the master's sitting on the donkey, hitting with the stick, and the donkey's going along the road there. Because Prabhupada thinking, well, the donkey's thinking, if I don't do this, I'm not going to get any grass at the end of the day. But he's walking past all this grass, but he's thinking, no, the master's the only one to give me the grass, and he's foaming at the mouth so hard. So this is compared to working so hard just to maintain, the husband and the wife and the children and the mortgage and the house and the car and the new furniture and whatever, the new television set, the new phone. So much is going on, and it just seems to be never ending. So people, they sort of become a little bit frustrated when it all goes wrong. So that's the third one, pa. So we've got pa, P-H-A, foaming at the mouth. Now we have ba, and ba means frustration. And I was just using this as like a game of snakes and ladders. Who hasn't played snakes and ladders when they were young boys? I don't know, or girls. It's just sort of like a board game, right? You throw a dice and you go forward, you're supposed to get to the top. And if you hit a ladder, you go forward a couple of places, or if you hit a snake, you go down, right? So this world is like a game of snakes and ladders, is that you're working along, all of a sudden, you know, you get a promotion and you're very happy, you're able to pay for everything. All of a sudden, you find you don't have a job because you've been retrenched. Or you have a new car and someone crashes your car, or you're in a lovely romance with someone, everything's going so nicely for you, and all of a sudden there's a break in the family, or your kids get sick. There are so many different aspects to the society because it's sukha, dukkha, happiness and distress. It never goes the way you want. It's always snakes and ladders. You got the ladders, you got the snake down there that'll come sliding down, and you become so frustrated. So, you know, you can't keep up with everybody else, or and you become so distressful. But you keep trying. There's no way you can get out because you're in the society. You lose your job, you get another job, and so on and so forth. So you just keep going. But as you keep going, another thing comes in. That's the fourth thing. It's called bayam. Bayam abayam. Remember that? Danger in every step of life. Bayam means fearfulness. So where does the fearfulness come from? It comes from the fact that we're born, that we've sort of grown up, we've had a family, and all of a sudden we're not doing what we used to be. We're not capable of doing what we used to do because old age is creeping in. And then, of course, there's a saying called you hit the wall. Anybody who's over 50 knows about hitting the wall sooner or later. Heart attack! Or, you know, you get something happens to you, you know. So that's a very fearful thing. So what do? You insure yourself against all this, right? You insure your house in case, you insure yourself against your job. You insure your car, you insure your property, and then you also take out insurance on death. Who's got death insurance? No one, really. Oh. So people take insurance in case they die. It's not that they get it; it's that the relatives get it, so the whole thing can keep going after they die. But the death insurance, that is the last one. The death factor, death, apavarga, or so Ga or Ma, death. So that is the fearfulness of the fact that you haven't done anything about your death. So you might have insured against death, but you don't know what's on the other side. So that is a scary thing. What is on the other side, if you don't know anything about death and you don't have any tulsi beads around your neck, what are you going to see? The Yamadutas. Nobody likes to talk about the Yamadutas, those fearsome creatures. They're going to actually come up to you, get your ropes and snatch your body, subtle body, out of your dead body and take to Yamaraj, and then they're going to say, well, you are accountable for your actions, because the spirit soul is always accountable for his actions, and have to do that towards you another body. That's a very good thing, because you get another body. This is a very good religion to be in, because if you're a Christian, you don't get one. You stay in hell forever because you blew it. You only get one chance, right? So, but if you're a devotee, you realize that you may actually get tortured. Like, I don't know, if you go to the gallery, you see Dante's pictures of hell in the 15th century, where all these people are getting tortured and pierced and everything. And it's all there in the 5th canto. It's really morbid. So that is a fact. You know, it is a fact. The Yamadutas do exist, and people are accountable for their actions. There's one great devotee friend of mine from Mayapur by the name of Jivanath, and he was telling me how he joined the Hare Krishnas, because he just went there and he loved dancing and chanting. He was jumping up and down so enthusiastically that they sort of paid a lot of attention to him, gave him a lot of gulabs and sweets and so forth. I think I've told the story before. that he was so satisfied that he could hardly move. And they said, "That's all right, you can stay the night." So he stayed the night, and they said, "Hey, we're all going out giving out books there. Would you like to do it?" And he thought that'd be fun. And he sold a few books, and he thought that's okay. And then finally, about 3 weeks later, he said, "Well, I better go home and get my stuff." And so finally he joined. But then comes that sort of questioning of, well, what am I doing? So he's at the airport one day, he's selling books, and he sees this businessman walking along, like he's just walking along that with his suitcase, and he got level with Jivana, and just at that point in time, he clutched his heart, dropped his suitcase, and he started to fall to the floor. And as he was falling to the floor, Jivana saw this, and he put his hand out like that, and then he collapsed on the floor. And all the people gathered around, "Oh, this man's had a heart attack. He's died on the spot." But Jiva saw that bit there, and he saw the fact, what was happening, that he was sort of, "Get away from me, don't come near me." He goes, "Okay, I believe in Krishna, I'm all right." But he sort of kept going with his service. So just that instant sort of, sometimes, it's a jolt that we get, and he actually had the realization there. So that's the material side of things, pavarga, hard work. So what's on the opposite side? The other side of the track is apavarga. That's the path to liberation. So it's the same thing. We'll go through everything like working. So we work because it's devotional service. It's not work anymore. It becomes lifestyle. And that lifestyle, that devotional service actually, instead of leading us to sort of getting further into the quagmire of material life, it leads to liberation. Text 7, Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, 1st canto, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yasuvairagyam Gyanam Cha Yada Hitukam. That by rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So we break it up. Rendering devotional service, causeless knowledge and detachment. So that is what is needed, devotional service, to get to that next level, what we can understand what our purpose in life is. So what is hard work? PHA, foaming at the mouth. Well, I don't know about foaming at the mouth, but there is hard work going on. It's just like, but the fact is that it's enjoyable. We see devotees working hard out in the fields, rounding up the bullocks on the tractors. There was one lady here yesterday that was entrusted with cleaning the toilets. She cleaned 4 sets of toilets from having them all yellow and stained and everything like that, was sparkling white, right? And nobody likes cleaning toilets. She cleaned 4 sets of toilets. And she said, "I've never been so happy in my life just doing this, because I'm doing it for Krishna." Right? So that's devotional service. I still have something fixed in my mind about when I first was in Sydney. We opened up that Sydney temple in Darlinghurst, and we had this hypnotist. He was a real character, Paul G. Scott, and he started to do car detailing for devotees. And he had a toothbrush, and he's cleaning everything around the dashboard with a toothbrush, right? Paul G. Scott, remember Paul G. Scott, Garuda? No. Oh, he's a character. And he's got this big smile on his face, huge smile on his face. So that's devotional service for you. It's so enjoyable. So that's the pava, and then then there's a sort of understanding the frustration, the bar, so the fear. But we can, or the frustration. Well, we can understand the material energy, that as we sort of get through the aging process, birth, reproduction, old age, we know that this is a natural purpose. This is our natural state of life. You can compare it to a big, grandfather clock. right? And you see all the second hand moving. You see the minutes moving a bit slow, and you see the hours slowly moving. And then in the grandfather clock, you can see all the moving bits there. There's hundreds of moving bits going this way and that way. And maybe there's one little bit that goes like that just to control the spring, right? So you ask that bit, how does this whole thing work? What's the purpose? That bit doesn't know. It's just like a part of this whole sort of process. So you can compare that to the living entity. We're all here. We've all got our bit to play in this material world, but we don't know what the big picture is. I can't tell you the big picture. How do you find out what the big picture is? What's the clock all about? Well, there's a set of instructions from the person who built the clock, and there it is. And then when you read the instructions, not only do you understand how the clock works, but you all understand the purpose behind the clock there. So when there is difficulty and you read the instructions, which we have been given by Srila Prabhupada, instructions of life, instructions on time, then we can understand that this phenomena is just a natural part of this material existence. And then we can understand that material energy is relentless. It is tough. It is tough for everybody. Not only is it tough for people outside, it's tough here for the devotees, it's tough for the trees, it's tough for the animals. That's how it is. Material energy is very, very strong. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Devi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratya man evam durantite. That's the last line, isn't it? Devi esha gunamayi mama maya duratya safam prapajite mam evam durantite. So this material energy is very difficult to overcome. We all know that. We all struggle with our mind. We've got these material bodies. We have the mind. But for the devotee, that we can understand that by surrendering to Krishna, we can cross beyond these modes of material nature. That is there. So how do we do that? We do it through Yukta Vairagya. So we've got those two parallel lines going down the track there. And sometimes when the trains are travelling in the same way, then one line has to get switched over, so one train goes in that direction. So we have two trains. We have the material train, we have the spiritual train. So we have to switch. So what do you want to do? Do you want to put the material train into the spiritual path, or do you want to actually travel down the spiritual path and say, that's enough and I'm going back down the material path? So for the devotee, Yukta Vairagya means that we switch the train tracks to the spiritual path. We're doing the same thing. All doing the same thing. We're enjoying prasadam. We're working hard. We're associating with each other, but we're not talking about our frustrations or what our family is doing, what everybody else. We're talking about Krishna. So it's called Yukta Vairagya. So whatever we do, we channel in Krishna's service, and that is the natural path for us to take, and then we achieve what is the purpose of life, and that is causeless knowledge and detachment. And then when death comes, it's not a fearful thing. So death is very, very fearful for those who don't know what's on the other side. But Prabhupada always says it's like the cat who's got the kitten in his hands and kitten in its mouth, and it's taken the kitten from here to there. Or if the mouse is in its mouth, then the mouse knows for certain that death is imminent. So it's like a stepping stone. It's called lightning and illumination at the same time. Or as Kadambakana Maharaj said once, that it's just a change of service. And ultimately it's a change of service from the material body onto the spiritual platform, where we don't experience that pavarga anymore. We have apavarga, bliss and liberation. I've got a few minutes left, and I was just meditating on a story which is sort of a little bit related, but it's a Krishna Leela story, and I always like to have a Krishna Leela story just to finish off after some hard philosophy and the Yamadutas and whatever. So I was just thinking about sukha dukkha. It sort of mentions that here, happiness and distress. So I was thinking about one devotee who was named Dukhi. Does anybody know that story about this devotee was named Dukhi? It goes back to Chaitanya Leela. You probably sort of it goes back to Chaitanya Leela that Gauridas Pandit was a great devotee, and Lord Chaitanya gave him a lot of mercy. And he had a disciple, Hridoy Chaitanya, and at the same time there was these people, just ordinary people in the village, some milkmen in the village, and they moved down a little bit away from Mayapur. They were in the Mayapur Dam. They moved towards Orissa, and they had children, and their first two sons died, and they were very sad. So the third son that they had, they said, if this son lives, if Yamaraj does not take this son, we'll call him Dukhi, right? That means sad. So if we call him Dukhi, then Yamaraj won't want him. That was, we'll offer him to Vishnu so Yamaraj doesn't get him. We'll call him Dukhi. So that was the name of their son that they gave him. But actually Dukhi was quite a bright boy. And he finished his education and he became very much spiritually attracted to Krishna. And one time he saw some sages going past, and he said, "Oh, can I go and take a swim in the Ganga, take a bath in the Ganga, get purified?" And the nearest spot was Ambika, which is not far from Mayapur. Actually, these days you have to go through Ambika Kalna to get to Calcutta. There's a reroute through Mayapur there because the other road's all clogged up. It might not be anymore. So anyway, he went to Ambika and he took a bath there in Ambika Kalna, and he became effulgent. And at that point in time, Hridoy Chaitanya, who was in the disciplic succession from Gauridas Pandit, he was a great soul. There's a whole story about Hridoy Chaitanya that Indradyumna Maharaj talks about him, a wonderful devotee. He noticed this boy here, Dukhi, and he saw the spiritual, the spirituality within that boy. So he initiated him, and he called him Krishna Das, Dukhi Krishna Das. Right? You got the story now? You up with it? Yeah. So Dukhi Krishna Das, he decided to go to Vrindavan because he was just totally attracted to the Lord. And he went to Vrindavan and he found the spiritual master, one of the 6 Goswamis, Lokanath Das, right? And he began to serve Lokanath Das Maharaj with great enthusiasm. And Lokanath Das Maharaj gave him a service that he go to Seva Kunj, and he sweeps Seva Kunj every morning. And so he was delighted because at night time we know Seva Kunj is all shut down because Krishna and the gopis in their subliminal forms, they come down at night and they have these pastimes, and no one's allowed at Seva Kunj during the night time. It's said that some people actually do go to Seva Kunj, they go crazy there. So Seva Kunj is shut, and so in the morning Dukhi used to go. So now he's initiated, so he's Dukhi Krishna Das. So he's sweeping the paths there in his great ecstasy and meditating on Krishna. And one time he was sweeping and he found this beautiful ankle bell, from ankle. It was shimmering. It was actually really, really bright, and all these wonderful jewels and that. He knew it wasn't an earthly thing. It was from somewhere else. It's from a spiritual world somewhere. So he saw it as so precious that he rolled it up and he kept it there and he kept on sweeping. So actually it was Radharani's anklet. So she lost it when she was dancing with Krishna, and somehow or other she left it there that night. And Dukhi Krishna Das found it. So then Radharani, when she noticed her favourite anklet was missing, she sent her favourite gopi, Lalita, to get it. So Lalita comes in the form of a gopi, and she comes as in the form of a gopi, a milkmaid, and she's looking here and looking there, and Shyamananda notices, he said, "Can I help you?" She said, "Yes, I'm looking for a bracelet." He said, "Oh, really? Yes, my sister lost it. We were in the village there. We're walking through the village and we lost this bracelet." And Shyamananda's thinking, "Oh, well, you're just a milkmaid from the village and you got this really expensive spiritual bracelet. How can this come about?" He said, "Are you sure you're just from a village and you're just a cowherd girl?" And Lolita's getting a little bit frustrated because she just wants to get the bracelet and go back to the spiritual world, go back there, go back to the Vrindavan atmosphere. And she's going, "Yes, yes, yes, that was my sister there. Do you know where it is? Do you know where it is?" He said, "But it's such an expensive bracelet. How could your sister have that? She must be a very, very wealthy person." And Lolita couldn't get the bracelet of Shamananda. He could, there was a dialogue going on there. And so then Lolita gave up trying to get the bracelet off Shamananda because he wouldn't give it to her. She said, "Okay, I'll take it to my sister." Right, so then she said, "Come and dip into this pond." So there's a pond there in Vrindavan where he dipped into the pond, he became a gopi, and lo and behold, he was in Vrindavan, he's right in front of the company of Radharani. He said, and she said, "This is my sister here." And he had the bracelet, and Radharani said, "Do you have something of mine?" And so he reached out and he was in ecstasy, he was fainting in ecstasy, he revived it. He gave her and she grabbed him by the hand. And then she put this tilak mark on his head. And he was in ecstasy with all the gopis. He's back in the spiritual world as a gopi. And then eventually she said, "You have to go back to the material world now, you'll be back with us soon." So he cried and cried, and all of a sudden he found himself back in Seva Kunj. And he was in complete ecstasy. He was overwhelmed that he'd been to see Radharani in the spiritual world. So he came back to his ashram, to Lekanath Maharaj's ashram, and he had this markings. This Radharani put the markings called Shyamananda Tilak. It was this beautiful tilak on his forehead. And so Lokanath said, "Well, that's Shyamananda Tilak. We'll call you Shyamananda. You got Radharani's mercy." So he was so ecstatic. But then his spiritual master, Hridoy Chaitanya, heard about that he changed his name and he changed his tilak so that my devotees rejected me. How is this? And he became so mad because he was attached to his devotee, Krishna Das Dukhi, and I gave him the name Krishna Das. Now he's calling himself Shyamananda, so he goes storming up to Vrindavan, very angry, and said, "What are you doing? You've actually rejected your spiritual master. Get out of Vrindavan, you have committed a great offense." And Shyamananda, he left and he was crying and, "I haven't done anything." This is the mercy of Krishna, but he couldn't explain it to Hridoy Chaitanya. So that night, Krishna, the deity that they were worshipping, appeared to Hridoy Chaitanya in his dreams, and he told him that actually Radharani put that tilak. Oh, first of all, he said, you can become my disciple again if you wash that tilak off and put the ordinary tilak back on." So they had a couple of devotees and they're scrubbing his tilak off. They're trying to scrub the tilak off his forehead. And when they did that, the tilak reappeared. So no matter how much they scrubbed, the tilak kept coming back. And so therefore he said, "You're banished, get out." And then Krishna actually appeared to him in his dream and said that Radharani put that tilak on him. So then Hridoy Chaitanya came up to Shyamananda and he said, "Who's your spiritual master?" He said, "You're my eternal spiritual master." And then he was in complete ecstasy because he actually understood that Shyamananda got Radharani's mercy. So he was no longer Dukhi, he was Sukhi, eternally happy. What a beautiful story. So does anybody have any questions or comments to make? Yes.
Thank you for for the class. In relation to the story about Sukhi Krishnadas, you were saying that in that pastime his spiritual master was chastising him and he kept quiet, he didn't repeat anything. So when a devotee is misunderstood or misrepresented to the spiritual master, or something happens, and sometimes you can't even say, like devotees can't even say anything because they are speaking against the person who's misrepresenting them. So in that case, it was revealed, Sukhi Krishnadas, he didn't defend himself.
He got Krishna's mercy.
So in what circumstances do you just let it go and just tolerate?
Yeah, that's the very appropriate point. Yeah, he got the mercy of Krishna, but sometimes when we are misunderstood, we have to take the humble platform, Trinada Pisha Nichanata or Pisna Vishnana, that lower. We feel ourselves very humble, and it's a very difficult thing. Was it more humble than was it more tolerant than tree? Devoid of all sense of false prestige, lower than the straw in the street. That's a really example for us that sometimes we know in our hearts that what we've done is, what we is the correct thing in our service to Krishna, but if someone's misunderstood it, usually it sorts itself out. Krishna will sort it out because Krishna's in our heart and we're surrendered to Krishna, and he usually sorts it out. It takes a little bit of time, but to sort it out, sometimes it takes that humility for us to show a little bit of, that there is a misunderstanding. And I'm in this material world and it's never going to be easy. There is so much misunderstanding going on out there in the world that people are misunderstood all the time. But the difference is if you actually resent that and you harbour that and you keep that for years and years, you misunderstood what I said so many years ago, and like for that I've never forgiven you. That you take that in your heart, so you have to let things go. Especially living in a community, there is so much that we do have to let go just to keep going with it. And the fourth thing is ready to offer respects to all others, because everybody else is a Vaishnava. And if some people have misunderstood you, still the fact is that they're devotees, you're devotees, we're all doing service and we're all working towards the same goal. So that is a real test for us on the community there. And there comes a time when you do get your chance to speak. We try to have that system going where we can, give our side of the story. Our temple president is very, very considerate. He'll always listen to two sides of the story. He'll listen to the first person. I've been there where I've thought this person is totally wrong and he's done something really bad, and then he calls that person up and I'm sitting there and he asks that person's side of the story first. What's your side of the story? And then you may hear things that you thought were, that person did, but he has an explanation now, his side of the story, it's legitimate. So there's always two sides of the story, and it's really nice if you do feel like that you do get to tell your side of the story as well, so we can sort of get a balance. So hopefully there is always that situation where we can do that. Yes.
I remember on that theme that you were talking there, I remember reading a long time ago by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that really sort of hit me. He said, we all are like children of the same father. Especially in a community, it's close and there's a lot of bumping goes on. But he said, we're all children of the same father. So he said, if two of the children have an argument, it's understandable. It's no big deal. Something comes to the surface and we have an argument. But he said, where the problem comes in is if a third person starts to take sides. And that sort of happens, isn't it, in the community? I side with that one or the other one. And he said, then politics enters and offences begin. So when that sort of thing happens, his advice is that we don't take sides.
Thank you very much indeed. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.